Hi, everybody. Welcome to Second Shift Studios, Art Soup Parallel Universe Edition. We're really happy to have you here with us tonight. We hope that you are in the comfort of home, staying warm with some good soup. And we're sorry that we couldn't have you in to join us. But this also gave us the opportunity to try live streaming and bring in an audience outside of the Twin Cities. So we're really excited to have some of our friends that have not been able to visit Second Shift to join us tonight. So I just want to mention that Second Shift is a residency program. Each year, 4 artists are awarded a residency with free studio space for a year and access to this beautiful gallery, a workshop in the basement, and just really great camaraderie. So the open call just launched a few days ago. You can go to Second Shift's Facebook page, webpage, or Instagram and learn more about it. And I highly recommend it. It's really amazing. It's wonderful. So tonight, I'm going to talk about Parallel Universe, this exhibition that opened in December. So this is the exhibition to celebrate my 60th year on the planet. And I will be talking a little bit about what parallel universe means to me. So the name kind of came because traditionally I've been known for doing work with water and electricity, like bulbs underwater and buckets and jars, and performance and sculpture, installations. And then I have this completely seemingly different and disconnected practice of drawing. So what are these two universes? Like, what do they have in common? How do they overlap? The one thing I can tell you for sure is they all come from the same place, right here, from me. So with that in mind, I'll talk a little bit about the background of my work with water and electricity first. As a young artist at MCAD, I was, of course, trying to figure out what is it I want to do, right? And so I really wanted to work with light. So I did the whole like light with shadows, and then I tried neon, and pretty soon I just found myself kind of evolving into working with just raw electricity, right? Through transformers. And I didn't get to the transformer yet. So I remembered when I was 4, my brother came into my room. He's just a little bit older than me. He was so excited. He's like, oh, he goes, check this out. And I'm like, what? Right. And he took a glass of cold water and poured it over my lamp. And so the light bulb blew up. I was like, so I'm in art college, and I'm like, I remembered this, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. So of course, blow things up. So at the time, the College of Art and Design had 2 levels. Where the sculpture studios were, and there was a walkway. So you could actually like go to the walkway inside. The lights on the first floor, and I was going to be really careful. And I went all the way to the second floor to pour water on them, and nothing happened. And so I had to get closer and closer and closer until I actually like figured out how to make that work. And then I started all kinds of experiments, and that I was working under Cork Marcheski at the time in sculpture. And so he called me into his office, and he's like, I'm going to give you a transformer so you don't kill yourself. Which is great. So I learned a lot about safety with electricity and water. I don't recommend that people just like go off and try that at home. Of course, I didn't know everything in the beginning, so the transformer was a really good tool to have. But I've mild fascination like with psychics and physics. So I'm really interested in things that are mysteries, like in the universe, right? Things we don't understand, like things like I'm really interested in magnetism right now, which I'm kind of surprised took this long to get into my whole water electric world. But just things like there's time in my life where I remembered or walking around and thinking, oh, I don't really live inside my body. Like my spirit's like not confined there, like, right? I can have perspectives from different places. And also times that were really difficult in my life, like after art school, when, I had to become a real adult and, take on really serious life challenges, survival challenges. And things got so difficult. At some point, it's like the veil between this world and the next got a lot thinner. Like, I just got a lot more connected to, like, not necessarily spirituality, but just this energy. It's all really about the energy. So just like recognizing that I have some influence and connection to an energy that's kind of different than like what I understood life to be growing up, right? And even now with COVID, I found myself out of my studio and in a new community where there happened to be a lot of nature trails. And it was really nice because it was working at home and not around people. All of us were, kind of homebound and for some time there. But nature walks just became so important to my work. And then it just got to be where when I was walking, I could just actually literally like feel like my connection to the space around me. Like that energy was no longer the space between, was not empty. Like, and so that's another fascination of mine, right? It's like, what about the space between? And I think it's an illusion. Like there's no space between. It's everything is literally connected. So, but we have the illusion because it looks like nothing is there. So these are the kind of things that really fascinate me. And even as early, like back in art school in the early 80s, when I was working with water and electricity, I really understood that there was this connection like that between what I was working with there and what life is, like what this life is, which of course we'll never have the answers to really here, but I get a lot of enjoyment out of contemplating those things. And so I actually play with water and electricity. So I say I have a mild fascination with psychics and physics. The physics piece is really kind of ephemeral, right? Like I'm not a good scientist. Like I don't keep records and do experiments and, figure things out, but I am fascinated with translating that work into works of art. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the piece that I made in the show that is a little more hidden in the room than the drawing. This is a work with water and electricity. It's called the Dream Acceleration Chamber. So some of you may have seen this online or even read what I'm about to read to you again. But this is the entire premise of the Dream Acceleration Chamber. And then we are going to, we have a little pre-recorded clip that we're going to take you inside so you can see what it's like to be there if you were here. So the Dream Acceleration Chamber has been awaiting your arrival. It is your portal to the unknown. Use it with care. Enter at the risk of uplifting yourself and others by sending good thoughts, healing energy, and your dreams of the world you wish to live in out to the multiverse. Begin a positive vibration here. That's my phone. I don't know. It's okay. Anyway, okay. So back to the Dream Acceleration Chamber. Something had to happen, right? It's fine. That's proves we're live, right? All right. So anyway, so your healing energy, dreams, all of this you're sending out to the multiverse because it's your intentions really that like make things happen. Like nothing happens if we don't think of it, right? And if we don't send it out somehow, then there's no physical transformation. But the energy transformation is pretty awesome. So we invite you all to like gather up all of your like thoughts and healing energy and intentions to send to the universe. And then we're going to allow them to reverberate endlessly through eternity because anything you set in motion literally never ends, which is a whole nother thing. I even just discovered black holes aren't really black, right? But with that, we are going to bring you into the dream acceleration chamber. So enjoy. So how was it? Did you guys have a great time? It's pretty amazing, I know. So we're really thrilled that you could actually come because it has been awaiting your arrival for quite some time. So the other part of my parallel universe are the drawings I do. So for a long time, I'm like, why are these two things so different and so separate? And it's really hard to convince myself that they're not, right? That they do really come from the same place. So my process in drawing really is kind of, I don't really think about what the outcome's going to be. It's more of a process. Like I'll start with the shape, and then I let my subconscious cell memory kind of inform what comes after that. So this particular piece, now that it's up, I got to measure it, and it's 28 feet and 11 inches long and 5 inches high, or 5 inches, 5 feet high. So I was invited to do a show at Northeast Sculpture, and I was working small. So I thought, I need to make something really big. And I just happened to have this huge roll of paper sitting around. So I decided to just start drawing and see how big of a piece I could make before the opening. And that was about 6 weeks down the road. So I started drawing whenever I had a chance during that time, and it ended up being 28 feet and 11 inches long. So I added spot colors and did exhibit. It was in 2019. And then after that, I rolled it up and put it away. And then I had to move out of my studio. So it just kind of sat for a while. And it was after COVID hit that I was in a new space without studio space, which, by the way, is one criteria for getting a residency at Second Shift. That's kind of the whole idea about making studio space available to people, is kind of to like combat the high price of studio space. So like if you don't have a studio, that's all the more reason to check this out and look at it. So anyway, took it back out. I'm on the kitchen table. I can only see 3 feet of this piece at a time at most. I have a big board on the table, so it's long enough. And so really pretty much the rest of the whole year of 2020, I just worked on coloring this in. And I was very naive in the beginning, like with this paper, that it could do anything I wanted it to. But so I thought, oh, I'll draw all this stuff and then I'll just come back with some watercolor and put some color in. But it's not watercolor paper. So I learned that I needed to use colored pencils, and I had not used colored pencils before, and I had absolutely no idea how much time it takes to draw with colored pencil. So this piece has about 470 hours, something like that in it. It's about the equivalent of 4.5 months of full-time work. So that's how I stayed busy during COVID. And I'm thankful. There's all kinds of good things that came out of the lockdown. I think it gave us all a chance to reflect on our lives in different ways. So for me, it gave me the opportunity to just really like hyper focus on this one huge piece. So the title of this work is Self-Portrait with Ice Cream and Candy. And it was finished January 3rd, 2021 at 11 p.m. So now I can talk a little bit more and we can walk through some of it. If any of you are watching from home and have questions or comments about certain parts that you see, things you're curious about, please feel free to throw that in the chat and we'll monitor that and answer some of your questions. I don't tend to say, oh, this piece is about blah, 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 because I'm actually as surprised as anyone, like when some of this stuff comes out, I'll look at it and go, what's up there? Like, what is that all about, right? And have to like do a little backtracking and try and make sense of it myself. And also, it's not really like the experiences obviously come from me, and my experience, even things in the world, it comes through my lens, right? So, but I don't talk about it being about me because it's more the experiences that come out and the things that end up being illustrated here are really universal experiences. Like one of the most exciting days when I had an open studio was that a neighbor was walking by from church and she was peeking in the window. So I invited her to come in, right? And she saw a part of the drawing that she got really excited about because it related to her. And when we get down to that area, I can talk more about that. So Peaches is here. We have a couple of our residents with us and she has a question. So what would you like to say?
Well, just when you were talking about working on it at the kitchen table, I totally realized that you must have worked on this like upside down for like as well, like on all edges.
Absolutely.
And I feel like your work has this kind of like, even like this thought of like the dream acceleration chamber, like I feel like it's something that like increases like with speed and that kind of like spirals. And now I'm like realizing all these like spirals in this piece and like ways that you worked on it from the top and the bottom and the side.
Beautiful. Absolutely. It's 5 feet tall. When you're sitting at the table, your arm only goes this far. So especially I did start at this end and I drew that way. But I mean, I realized right away, like I can't reach that far, right? So yes, definitely you have to turn it upside down. So that's how I started these upside down worlds. I'm like, oh, everything doesn't have to be the same way. And like you're saying, it's like the universe is always spinning, right? And it's like that literally translated into this piece. That's a very neat observation. Yeah. So definitely that is a deal. And same with coloring it. Like I had to go all the way down and then I get to that end and start coming this way. And I get to this end and I'd be like, oh, now that I did all that, I have to fix this. So it was many times through before I finally decided it was over. Now that it's up, like, I'm like, oh, I could do this. And I'm like, no, you signed it. It's done. Stop. You said it's done. So I'm honoring that and letting it be what it is and moving on to new things. So we're going to take a little bit of a walk through. So like I say, I would just start with the shape and see what comes out. A few things in here came from previous sketchbooks, but then I kind of would do an alteration on the theme. Most of it was like during those 6 weeks, just came out new. So of course, we just talked about this first upside down world. This was the very first character that came in. And then I just kind of imagination go and kind of would see where it went. And then we moved into this area, which I don't know, someone asked me if this is Alice in Wonderland here, but I had not thought of that. So I don't know. Like I say, I really don't have like any one story about each part. They're just little pieces of my life, which get sprinkled through, which is why I called it a self-portrait. And with ice cream and candy is just because it's kind of just fun and lighthearted. but it's got some serious overtones too. So this is one of my favorite pieces here where there's actually a woman in here. If you look close, like the head and the body, it kind of looks like a flag flying too. And then it kind of goes through here and there's legs, but then one of them stops here and this other one kind of dips down. And then it just kind of like flows into more creatures, friendships happening, maybe some troubled mind. And then we have another upside down world. And this was one of my, this area here, I'm gonna move over here a little bit. This area here was one of my favorite parts to work on because it just kept evolving. So I like eventually this like purple like horse ended up having a Salvador Dali mustache. I wanted something a little surreal, as if it wasn't enough already. So just a little bit of a nod to history. The monarch butterfly has a big significance in different parts of my life, but also friends of mine too. Like I have friends who raise monarchs, and Constanza, who's one of our residents, uses monarchs in her work. She does these lovely portraits of children with monarch wings, and she made the connection between migration, like how natural it is, like for living entities to migrate, and how harsh that certain sectors of our society have been towards what should really be like a birthright for people. So there's just like, there's multiple like connections, like through people I know in life with the monarch. That was pretty important piece. And then somebody asked me if it was an owl. I thought it was an eagle, but maybe it's like an eagle owl or something. Again, like, connections like with my father, like after he passed away, it's like I would see eagles all the time, like whenever I drove somewhere for a long time, and I'm just kind of watching over. And then this upside down world of motherhood and kind of being lost at sea. But then there's always joy. Like I always try and bring joy back, like through all of the darkness of life. One of the tenets of my work, at least like for the last like maybe 15 years or so, has really been focused on like creating joyful opportunities for people, or spaces people can experience joy, kind of forget their day-to-day troubles, and just kind of, feel that feeling of something lighthearted and hopeful. So that's why I think I tend to use really like bright colors, and just even like the style of the drawing isn't, I don't try and like be a realist, right? I'm not really interested in, doing a Michelangelo, right? Or even taking a photograph, but just the imagination, just letting the imagination flow and draw out. And I think I was able to develop this style of drawing. I didn't draw like when I was in my like early 20s. It wasn't until I was a stay-at-home mom and I was disconnected from my creative community and I had no money. So I would get stacks of typing paper and ballpoint pens. And it was so important to me to keep a connection to my creative spirit that's all I did for years. Like anytime I could, I just drew, and I just kept them. And now I have like literally thousands of drawings from over those years. But I think the combination, there was no internet. So the combination of being able to draw without any expectation of anybody ever seeing the work, judging the work, allowed me to develop this style that was really uninhibited. And so I've carried that through over time. And I don't know if I could have really done that really without that break and that freedom. And I think, there's times in our lives where we get that, and they're kind of few and far between. So, if you really look at, you know, times of isolation, and, it's like, if you can like kind of like get a new lens and look at it as a gift, like I wouldn't have known at the time that something like this would come out of it later from that experience. So I'm just really like learning to just value like even all the troubling dark times in my life, and just see like how they inform my work and my ability to empathize with other people and understand. Because without feeling something, you really never can quite put yourself in someone else's shoes. So it's been really very useful in those ways for me. And then when we come through here, then we get into my, I don't know, I guess the bridge between psychics and physics are aliens, right? So you will see periodically in my work alien invasions. So these alien creatures have landed and they're like scoping things out. And I think this is probably came from like an alien abduction where someone's lifting up into the ship. I know we hear like about cows being lifted up, cow abductions. So this one is an alien abduction of this human who's in some kind of a dream state now. And this is a couple of these are favorite pieces of mine too. Like this, if you look close, the thing about being able to work on only 3 feet at a time is like the piece is spun from far back, but there's all kinds of little treasures hidden in here just because I was focused on detail. So I think she might have a little alien baby too. I'm not sure. Just saying. Peaches?
Do you see like aliens or like alien invasion as like a hopeful thing? Like what is the kind of like tone around that concept? Because it seems fun.
Yeah, it's totally fun. My aliens are really nice. They're
like save us or believe us.
I don't know if they're going to save us, but I think they're as curious about us as we are of them. Yeah, I would say that's kind of how they translate here anyway. But yeah, I have never made a mean alien. Now that you mention that, there's still time. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So, and the cowboy, of course, I really just adore that one. It's like, he's just like, he's kind of at this feudal state in his life, right? Like, I don't know what he's really thinking, but he's kind of thrown down his gun and the bullets are in the fire. And I don't know, he looks a little broken, but I think he's adorable. So this is another one of my favorite pieces, like these like bird transporters who are like transporting this like forlorn girl somewhere. I can't tell you where, can't tell you what they're doing, but they do look like they're doing something useful. And she totally looks like she could use the help for sure. Yep. And then this piece here, actually, this came from a little bit of a darker drawing of a sketchbook in my life. So, and I didn't necessarily want this piece to reflect that level of despair. So I just made it a little more lighthearted. And then in the original one, this Barker here was just saying, step right up, like you're next, right? But if you look close, like she was evidently on this ride and got thrown off into who knows where. But then it comes to this next part where this locomotive is rising up out of the ocean. And so that's kind of like, not the redemption, but just like resiliency, right? Like no matter what you throw at me, like I'm coming up. It's like you can't hold me down. But then at the same time, there's this like this funny little, I suppose he's kind of a, what is it, like a sunken ship, like a sailor on a sunken ship, like who died and his bones are under the under the ocean. But yeah, that must be his ghost because his bottle's empty and I don't know. The shark doesn't even care about him anymore. And then we move into this next section, which is really intriguing to me. This is the section where the woman, the neighbor lady from church popped in, and she was so excited. She goes, "Oh my God." She goes, "You drew my lips." She said, "That's me." And then she stepped back and she looked, she goes, "This is all my friends in East St. Paul." And so, and it was just the greatest like affirmation to me that other people see themselves in this. And that's what I've always hoped and dreamed. I mean, honestly, like in the end, like I feel like a children's hospital or some other public building would be a really good place for this, like especially a children's hospital, like where parents are, stressed out, their children are sick. It's really hard because that's out of your hands, right? You have to like put your faith in someone else. It just feels like it'd be such a great distraction. Yeah. So, but yeah, this part kind of is more like, I don't know, I just kind of see this like life starting out as a young adult, right? And like, you don't really know what you're getting into. Things might be a little confusing or twisted. And yeah, who knows? Who knows? I know what happened between then and now, but there's still more time. And then this is like kind of like part of my favorite of all time is, yeah. So this rabbit, like I didn't consciously think about it, but in the very end, just this little piece on the ear came out, which is a color, which is the reflection of the moon on the water, which is a dear friend of mine, title of a song he wrote. So it's just nice to like have little like pieces of myself and my friendships and relationships reflected in here and still be able to share it with everyone else. So thank you so much for walking through Parallel Universe with me tonight. And if anyone has any questions or wants to send something in the chat, we have a few minutes for that. Otherwise, I guess that would be it, right? Yeah, no. So do I have one last minute? Okay, so I want to thank Emily for filming. Thank you, Emily D. And also remind everyone, Second Shift Studios, go online and look up the open call. Just opened, so you've got some time to put your stuff together. It's an easy application. And it's also not project-based, which is amazing. It's like, you don't have to say, I'm gonna do this and then do that. It's like, you just like present yourself as an artist, like who you are, what you do, like what are your dreams, for your work, and need studio space. And then they'll review all the applications, and 4 very lucky artists will be here next year. I know I couldn't be happier. So if anyone is in a position to make donations to Second Shift, they're always welcome, and definitely a worthwhile investment into some artists' careers and kind of supporting the space. So it was a brilliant idea, and we couldn't be happier to be here. So thank you all for coming. Have a great evening.